And here we are with another edition of Reminiscing with History Makers. Today we're visiting with Gary Gregg. Gary, what chapter are you from?
The CPRA chapter, which is Southern California.
Great. When did you join APCO?
I joined APCO in 1973. My first CPRA chapter meeting was in 1970. My employer had a governmental membership, and I was sent to represent the county at that point. My first annual conference was San Diego in 1974.
Please describe your agency, your position, and brief responsibilities and length of service.
Well, I'll start that in reverse order. I retired from the County of Orange, California after 40.58374 years. And I worked as an engineering aide until I finished my engineering degree in the road department. In late 1969, I came to a position in communications engineering in the Department of Transportation and Communications for the County of Orange. I worked through various stages there, served as project engineer on a number of things, and eventually was appointed to be the chief telecommunications engineer / engineering manager until my retirement.
Please describe what course drew you to join APCO, or was a particular person influential in getting you to join?
There was a long history of APCO activity. CPRA joined APCO in 1945 as a Southern California chapter, but from the beginning of that in 1935, same year APCO started, CPRA started, and long tradition of it there. As I mentioned, they had a governmental membership in APCO when I came aboard, and with that, they had so many card-carrying members that were represented on the APCO official rolls. In 1973, my assignment changed, and they told me I was going to be one of the card-carrying APCO members representing the County of Orange. The influential people there were R.I. Cuba Morris, who was the Director of Transportation and Communications, and he's the father of Ross Morris, who became a president of APCO International some years later. And our manager locally, Associate Director of Communications, was Max Elliott. Both of those gentlemen, now Silent Keys, were APCO Live members.
Can you describe your APCO activities at the state, chapter, and national level during your tenure at APCO?
Yes, my responsibilities at the APCO chapter meetings were to represent the County of Orange, its cities, districts, and authorities in frequency management, spectrum management, frequency coordination activities. And I was selected for that because of the engineering work that I was doing for the County of Orange. I was in short order asked to serve on CPRA chapter committees, then became a committee chair, and was selected to move up through the chairs. I served as CPRA chapter president in 1980 and again in 1984. Along the way, I was asked to serve on APCO committees. I chaired eventually the engineering committee, and I chaired the frequency advisory committees coordinating all of the state coordinators before the FCC centralized that in 1986, and was eventually elected to APCO office, and my term as presidency was 1988-1989.
Has your APCO membership had a direct effect on your career in public safety communications?
Undoubtedly it has. It's hard to describe exactly what and where and why, but it certainly helped my professional development through the various responsibilities. I learned a great deal, learned to interact with others that we shared spectrum with, and just it was a good experience, and I'm sure it helped me to develop. I can't pin it down to a single item or two.
What do you like most about APCO?
The people. Very good people, dedicated people. Virtually everyone I've met ever in APCO is dedicated to their work, dedicated to the furtherment of public safety communications. As an example, when I hired on, I was told that, our work is important, but the only reason any of us are here in engineering or in the technical field is to keep the dispatch center on the air, and we need to be mindful of that. And that's, you see what our public safety people, the first responders, provide to our society, then helping to keep that on the air is a good, worthy goal, a noble goal, and something that I was proud to be a part of.
What do you think that APCO does better than anyone else?
Public safety frequency coordination and spectrum management. And APCO does many things these days, but I think that's their hallmark. It started that way, and it's still a vital part.
What does APCO need to do to move forward and stay current?
APCO needs to continue to maintain its communications, both internal to the organization and external to the outside world. I think that's the key element.
And what is your most favorite APCO memory?
Oh, there's too many to pick out.
Well, thank you, Gary, for visiting with us today and sharing some of your memories and history. We really appreciate your service and what you've contributed to this great organization.
There was one more thing that was on the list of questions that I saw, and that was what part of my APCO history I was proudest of or made the biggest impact. After my presidency was over in 1989, I asked if I could address the incoming board of officers, and they granted that request. I said there's an FCC notice of inquiry that is looking into digital and advanced communications technologies. In that endeavor, the FCC was looking towards what they're going to do with the future of communications. I said, we, APCO, need to be able to respond to that FCC notice of inquiry, and we need to look into the different questions that they're asking, because this is also affecting all of public safety through the FCC's proceedings. And I said, in getting prepared to do this, we need to get a group together to look at these questions the FCC is asking in its inquiry, and to be able to respond to that. I said this might turn out to be another Project 16, which was the trunking standards that were developed years before. Well, this was something that turned out to be quite a big project. They asked me to host the first meeting at the Department of Commerce. They didn't ask it at the time, but the bottom line was that the Department of Commerce decided that they wanted to host it because the federal government was looking into these things, as well as the FCC for the non-federal government part of the United States. This did turn into Project 25, which is still ongoing today. So indirectly, with them allowing me to chair the first meeting, I started Project 25 for APCO. And that's my most memorable part.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Gary, for sharing with us today.
It's been my pleasure.